Hey all, we are about to start. So get ready because today is gonna be the second part of the Bitcoin class, and we're gonna conclude this journey. Let's say that we started last week. So we are about to see something cool also because it's the moment of the halving, no? So just yesterday, like the reward of the blocks has come down to an half, and we're gonna see what does it mean exactly. So first of all, like the website is getting reshaped. So right now you can still see it, and the layout has been changing and some features added. Just don't get surprised if the next few days maybe it's gonna be down. And as always, like follow us if you want to see some news on Instagram and Twitter also. So we put stuff in the moment. So follow Instagram and Twitter. So just a few like what you can expect from Cryptonario in the next period is the content is gonna be available in Spanish also in the coming time, and also you're gonna be able to see the classes online. So we're just working on this. So this is also the reason why the website will be down for a bit, maybe a few days. And we can begin to start like with a quick wrap up on the Cryptonario class of last time. At well, we saw that we arrived to the moment in which we had different banks, no, with different IDs, which is the name, no, of the bank in a way is a way to identify, no, the bank. And we had this oligopoly, no, of entities that like every turn somebody in this oligopoly, no, different banks validate the new block, no, of transaction. And after the banks finish, well, the circle goes back again, no? So bank one validates block one, then next block gets validated by another, no? And we saw this is possible because we have an ID number, no? So this means that like we can identify the banks in the system because they have an ID, no? And this is cool, no? Because we can identify them, and so we can know whose turn is next, no? But this is a problem because if we want to go to full decentralization, no, from oligopoly to full decentralization, well, we kind of need to allow nodes to join the network and go out of the network whenever they want, no? And this is gonna make difficult for us to assign an ID to the banks because nodes can join and go out whenever they want. So who is gonna assign the ID to the different nodes when they enter and when they go out? Like there could be somebody who assigns this, who assign these IDs, but this would introduce now always a central party that we need to trust, no, in order, in this case, just to assign IDs, but still is enough to put in danger, no, the system. So this is one problem that we have now. And another problem is that even if we have some IDs, no, that gets magically assigned to these banks, still nodes will be like you can create a lot of identities, and so the network can be attacked by Sybil attacks. No, that we saw last time is how to for is the way in which you can attack a network by forging a lot of different identities because they don't have any cost, no, for you to create. So maybe like a good path would be to kind of get this identity creation or at least the validation of the block some way costly, so we can avoid, you know, this type of attack. And also we have an idea, no, and like what could happen if in order to for you to have an identity on the Bitcoin network you would need to assume a cost, no? This at least we would discourage attackers to create fake identities easily. No, you cannot create 1,000 fake profile because this is going to imply for you a cost to create each one of them. So you're kind of discouraged at least in the quantities, no, of profile that you can create. And so now we can think like what if the right of to create a block was proportional to the consumption of a resource that we hope is kind of decentralized? No, this we talked just a little bit last time, and it's good to catch up. So it's like if we have this resource that we can see that is kind of decentralized, and we have the proof that somebody used this resource to validate a block and he actually spent this resource, then we can kind of make sure that this guy didn't create a huge amount of other identities, no? Because he kind of needed to have a cost to have some skin in the game, no? To, to say its own opinion, no? Which at the end, in this case, is validating a block. So if we actually do this, then we kind of have solved not one problem but two, because so first of all, like about the censorship problem, because if we introduce this thing of the resource in which you need to spend this resource, which is kind of decentralized, and this is your only way to say the opinion, no, your opinion on the network. Then if nobody can monopolize this resource, then what would happen is that nobody has full control of the network, no? So we kind of protect against censorship, which is the thing that also we wanted to avoid in this oligopoly that we had, no, last class. And also Sibyl attacks, no? For this reason we said that creating identities is expensive, so at the end is not what matters is not the number of identities that you have, or the number of nodes, no, that you control, but is mostly the access that you have to this resource. So you can spend this resource in through just one node or in a lot of nodes, but still you need to spend this resource. So for the Bitcoin network, at the end it doesn't matter. You can have how many identities you want. Like we don't care. No, a Bitcoin network doesn't care. It's just what he cares about is just okay. Show me that you spent this, because if you spent, then it shows that you have some skin in the game and you're not an attacker. No. And so, like maybe one thing, no, to recap, participants could be asked to find maybe a solution to a problem that kind of represent the block of transaction. Why? Because at the end we still need to validate transaction. So it's good that these resources are spent in order to arrive at a solution that kind of reflect what is being said in the block, no? Because if not, it doesn't make any sense. So whoever find this solution then would nominate, no, the next block. And this is something we saw a lot of times already. No, this is the hash, an hash, and is kind of get from an input of text, no, a data stream. You apply this function, and you get a fixed amount of characters that are random and that have these properties. No, they are deterministic. So for every, like, if the input of text you put is the same, then you're gonna have the same hash, and it's collision resistant. So if you have different pieces of data, they will have different hashes, and it's a one-way function. So you cannot get from the hash to the initial input that you had. This hash, we can actually use it in the Bitcoin network in a way that is very interesting. And this is the Merkle. We can use it in the block, like in the Bitcoin network, how it works, through a structure. And this structure is called the Merkle tree. And it's something that we saw already, but is good to refresh, because this is very key point in Bitcoin. And what we saw a bit in a rush last time is that if we have a lot of transactions, No, for example, let's say we have this 8 transaction, no, in this block. What happens if we make the hash of this transaction, no, to all of them? Like every transaction gets its hash that is gonna be different, no, from the other transaction because of these properties, no, that we saw. Once we make this hash, then 2 by 2 we can take this transaction, no, in pairs and hash them together. Like we can get the hash actually of this transaction, and we hash the hashes together simply by adding them. No, if you have an hash, you write just after the other hash, and this is a new data input that you can hash again, and you obtain another hash, and so we obtain now less hashes. Once we hash this again, we also obtain other hashes, and then we hash it again until arriving at what is called the root hash. No, this root hash is extremely important, and because this root hash is what at the end kind of contains the proof that in that block there have been all these transactions, transaction A, B, C, D, E. They kind of are condensed into this root hash, no, into this header, which is gonna kind of be the header of the block of Bitcoin. So this hash is very important because every block has its own hash, no? So in this way, what we did is basically condense the information of transaction into a simple hash, which is kind of cool, no? Because it's wow, we kind of get all the transaction and have the certification in just one string of characters that this transaction have been put in the block, no? And this way the hash represent the whole block, and this was possible because of this operation, no, that we saw. So we kind of have the first characteristic of the block, which is it needs to have an hash, no, that gathers together all the transaction in that block. So this is a feature that the block of Bitcoin should have. And this way is we can process the information on what is happening, in the network transaction-wise. And another characteristic is the one we saw before. It's like we should really make sure that somebody made an effort to create the block, because we really don't want Sybil attacks. We don't want somebody to create fake identities for free. How can we do this? Well, what we can do is, how can we make sure that these resources have to be spent in order to propose a block? Well, maybe we can make kind of a riddle, mathematical riddle in a sense. We can make sure that every node that wants to mine a block, they need to obtain an hash that has a condition in it. Like this hash should have a certain amount of zeros at the beginning. Why? Because Satoshi Nakamoto says so. Like, is this? By putting this condition, is what we obtain is we saw already that the hash is random, so you cannot really expect before you hash some data. You cannot know the hash before. You cannot know if it has some zeros. You cannot know where they are. So if somebody tell you, look, I'm gonna take just the hashes that have some zeros in it at the beginning, and these are gonna be the only hashes that are verified and that makes you propose a block, then you cannot put a condition in which people cannot need to guess how to put the information of the blocks in order to obtain an hash that match this condition of zeros, because we saw it's a random string what you get as an hash. So what we can do, we can on one side get the root hash of the Merkle tree, which is the thing that synthesizes the block that contains all these transactions in a compact way, let's say. But this hash alone would give always the same result, and so it's if there is no zeros in it, bad luck, so but it cannot work. Like we need to match the condition of the zeros, but also we need to put the transaction that we have in the block inside the hash, no? So what we can do is actually adding together the root hash, no, of the Merkle tree, which represents all these transactions, and hashing it together with a number, a random number, completely random. Like choose whatever you want, we don't care. This number, this casual number, is just its only purpose is to mix it, no, in a way with the root hash of the Merkle tree, which is this representation of transactions. And it's like a dice, no? You try to get this random number until you get a random number that makes everything work, that makes the amount of zero you want at the beginning, no? So what happens exactly in the specific? Well, what you want to do, you want to hash the Merkle tree. We want to, with this hash, we add this random number that we call nonce, and we add them like simply writing them together, like no magic at all. And then we hash it, and then what we want on the right is this hash, this final hash that has this amount of zeros, no? So what we can do is we do this hash function. So on the left we have this Merkle tree, and on the right we have this dice, and we do the hash function of all these together. And if we are lucky, on the right we have the hash that begins with such number of zeros. For now, if we try, no, it doesn't begin with the zeros we needed, so this hash is useless. What can we do? Oof. Well, let's try again. So let's change the nonce, no? Let's throw another time the dice, but we maintain the Merkle tree because this is what represents the transaction for real, and we just change the random number, we change the nonce. We throw another time the dice, and what happens is that we get another hash that is different from the one before, but still doesn't fulfill our conditions, because it doesn't have the zeros we require, no? So this neither is good, no? So we try again, we just change the nonce, the Merkle tree stays the same, and oh, we're lucky. An amount of zero that we want at the beginning of the hash. So this we can propose it as a block, and the Bitcoin network it can accept it because it has these conditions that we want, no? It has all these zeros at the beginning, and it represents, no, the block with the transaction that we want to show and validate. So this is cool, and this is a thing that you need to do. It's like a lottery ticket. Like even if you know the transaction that you want to validate, you need to throw these dice until you get the result you want, no? Until you get this amount of zeros. So this operation is not sequential. It's like throwing a dice, like we saw, and you need to repeat it a lot of times usually to win the ticket, no, in a way. So it's literally like a lottery ticket, but in the long run, like the more you hash, it's an effort at the end because your computer is doing stuff, no? Is in this case now is wasting electricity just because he needs to compute this thing. And this is the way how the blocks are created, no? And it's kind of cool because we prevented the Sibyl attack from to happen, and we also find a way to put all these transactions, no, inside the block. And can we say that Bitcoin is decentralized? Yes, like arguably yes, because to monopolize the issuance of coins and the validation of blocks, you need to monopolize the hashing power. Like you need to be the only person that has this hashing power around. And at the end, everybody who can connect its computer, they can have the access to this resource, no? In a way. So it's not easy to monopolize the issuance of coin, and it's not easy to censor the network either, because you need to take down every Bitcoin node in the world. So it's kind of hard, no? Because everybody can install the software of Bitcoin in their own laptop, and they run the software, and you have Bitcoin. So you need to close everything, like not possible at all. And but what if miners, no, abuse their power? Well, if miners abuse their power, no, it means that they say, hey, you know what, we are mining, we have this hashing function going on, and we don't care about Bitcoin. We want to get rich, no? And so maybe they validate transactions that are bad, that they double spend or whatever, no? And the cool thing, if is that the other nodes they can check the miners because the protocol is open. So if they don't like their job, well, they can go to work, no, and they can become miner too at the end. So this way, the market reaches an equilibrium in which bad actors are kind of washed away, no, from the network. And so miners like need to behave honestly, no, somebody else will do their job, so they're kind of washed, by the nodes of the network, even if the nodes are not mining themselves, but they can see if the miners are doing a good job or not. And the miner he gets a reward, no, because at the end, he's the guy who's making sure that Bitcoin is not attacked by fake identities, no, through Sybil attacks. So at the end, he gets the right to append the next block on the blockchain, and but he needs also to show that he spent physical resources, no, to do it. In this case, hashing power, and he gets rewarded for this. So if he proves that transactions are valid, no, that he did a good work, that he spent resources, well, good luck, because you have a Bitcoin. And so in order, like, the more resources, no, that these miners spend in the network, the more probable is that he will get the chance, no, to append the next block to the blockchain. So this is the reason why we said before, hey, it doesn't matter how many nodes you have. Is what matters is how much resources you spend, because the right for you to say your opinion on the state of the network and validate it is proportional to the resource you're spending, is proportional to how much skin you are in the game. So who mine the block has the right to receive newly created money, no? According, of course, to the rules of Bitcoin consensus that we're gonna see in a bit. What are these rules? And this reward makes the miner more incentivized to play by the rule and not try to cheat the system, because at the end, if he tried to overtake the network with a huge amount of hashing power, no, so a huge amount of electricity, he would need to sustain this attack for every block, and at the end, even if he succeeded it for a bit, for some blocks, then he would have a worthless currency, because nobody, like, everybody can see that Bitcoin gets got hacked, then Bitcoin wouldn't have any value. So also it's very expensive to sustain this kind of attack, no, because it's not you hack it once and you're done. Like, you need to keep fighting all the the good nodes. So it's kind of difficult. But how do they get rewarded, the miners? Well, they are the ones who create the block, no, in a way. So they can simply write in the block, hey, give me Bitcoin, no, to my wallet. Would they ask to the protocol? How? Well, if there are miners, no, if they validated the network, they spent resources, they saw the transactions are correct and stuff, they can put a transaction that doesn't come from nobody, so it has no input. So you guys remember last week we saw what is it, this unspent transaction output, no, that for every input there are some outputs that are created. Some of them they are changed, some of them, no, they are spent. So the miner can put a transaction and say, hey, uh, give me whatever is the reward, for that block. But it doesn't need to have an input. It doesn't need to come from nobody. So this is the way, that is created Bitcoin. And also, like, okay, what happens if you begin to have your node? What would happen at the end when you download the Bitcoin software? Well, after you download, the software, you have your node. Then your node is gonna try to connect to another node, so it's gonna begin to talk with the protocol, and say, hey, show me the nodes that are near here. And it's gonna talk to a node, he's gonna find it, hopefully, and he's gonna get a response. It's gonna say, another node is gonna say, hey, yes, I'm available, what you want, like, uh, tell me. And the node, your node, can say, hey, nice, you're here. Then let me ask you something, like, because I'm here too now, so I'm still online. And can you give me the list of the people the peers you have? And then the other node, a node that was in the blockchain before that was validating or simply was watching around, whatever, then he's gonna give you the list of all the computers he knows, that are in the Bitcoin network. And so you can have all this list, and you can keep asking people and about the people, the nodes they know, the people they know in the Bitcoin network. And this way, like, you get updated on who are the nodes around you, so you can ask information, you can see if everybody's working correctly, and these kind of things. And also, if you're not synced, in the blockchain, then if somebody's see that your node is out of syncs, so maybe you have a old block, then it's gonna give you the node you talk to all the missing blocks, in order for you to be updated. And you're gonna keep syncing, like, always get updated. So because you are a node now, you need to see the blockchain in real time. But what happens if somebody mines a node, a block, and somebody else does it too? Like, this can happen, no? Because there is a huge amount of nodes. So, like, what happens if two people mine the block in the same time? Sorry, guys, this allergy is getting me crazy. So, we get a block, no? Let's say the blockchain is arrived to this stage, and somebody mines the block. Somebody mines the block N1, is the new block. So the green guy he mined this, and then somebody else mined another things, but slightly in the same moment. So you cannot really distinguish which block was before and which block was after. Is they were in the same moment. In this case, still you cannot say, who is right, who is wrong, what is the blockchain and what is not. So you need to wait, and you wait until, hey, the same guy, who popped up, well, he mined another block. So wow, so this is makes sense. It seems, that the blue node, like, is getting ahead in the blockchain. So it's very fast, and probably the version of reality is gonna be the one of the blue node, because is faster. But no, because for example, the other node also mines a block, and then wow, and then mines a block again. So, what happens here? Well, what happens is, now the blue guy needs to be very careful, and he needs to understand, because, like, can he mine other blocks in order to get forward in the blockchain before the other guy mines these blocks. So if the green node keeps mining block and goes along with the blockchain, then let's say other nodes begin to mine on top of the green blockchain, because they see that is the most advanced one, so they want to focus their hashing power on the winning blockchain. They don't want to focus it on a very, like, not used blockchain, so in this case, if the green blockchain takes ahead, and everybody begins to mine on this, well, that's a bad luck for the blue node, because what he needs to do, very sadly, is to revert all the transaction that he approved, and until arriving at the block where everything is separated, and begin to download, like we saw before, no, like this block syncing. You need to sync with the green blockchain. So it's and he's gonna do it, because if he's not gonna do it, then he's gonna keep staying in his own blue blockchain that nobody is gonna mine into, so he's gonna be alone in the blockchain. This is gonna be very sad, and his network is gonna worth nothing, because nobody is in validating it. It's just him validating it, so it's not secure at all, no? So this was a chain reorganization, no? He kind of reorganized, because we saw before there was this blue chain that then we throw it away, and then we decided to go for the green chain. So this is called the Nakamoto consensus, because the Nakamoto consensus say, look, the longest chain wins. So if there is a moment in which something is not clear, just let's wait, let's put it in draw, and then let's wait this draw to be broken when the next block or blocks are mined, no? And so in this case, if you are in the bad luck of having lost this race, what you need to do is just this, just it. Throw away everything that you have since the beginning of this split, and begin to get the information of the other person, which transaction they accepted, and these kind of things. So you need to reject the last part of history, that you have in your last block, because nobody else is gonna have it. So you really need to throw it away in order to sync with the others. And if not, like we said, you're gonna stay in your own chain, which still you can have fun, but it's gonna be an extremely insecure network, and nobody's gonna use it because nobody's validating it. So everybody will follow the longest chain, and you will be literally alone. And so what you need to do, like we saw, no, that transactions in Bitcoin are money is unspent transaction outputs, no? So it's basically what has not been spent. This is what an unspent transaction output is. Which money is available still to be spent? This is considered to be money. And you need to revert whatever you in your history, in your recent history, you see that somebody spent, because you need to revert. You need to cancel this transaction and agreeing to the others, no? So you also need to update the list of transaction that needs to be approved, because maybe the other person, like, they approved transaction that are different from yours, no? Most probably. So your mempool is not going to be the same of the other person, because you approved something and you approved something else. So you need to update also the mempool, no? It's important. And this is just to let you understand that when you see a block, there is a lot of possibilities. Like the new block that you see in the network, you can extend the main chain. It can create a new branch of the main chain. You can extend an existing branch. You can create a new branch of an existing branch. You can a lot of things can happen. So as you see, is not easy, and also like there is this kind of uncertainty, at least for some blocks in which you don't know which chain is gonna win. And this is the reason also why when you make a Bitcoin transaction or other cryptocurrencies, usually you need to wait 6 blocks to consider, at least in the case of Bitcoin, the transaction executed, because exactly of this reason. Because after 6 block, like probabilistical wise, it's extremely improbable that there is a chain reorganization. So because it goes down exponentially, this probability. So after 6 block, you can say, okay, the blockchain the transaction has been timestamped in history, So still there are some problems we didn't fix, and it's inflation. So inflation is very bad, and unfortunately we're gonna see a lot of it in the coming years. and we don't want to have it in Bitcoin, no? So why? Well, of different reason, but in general we have two types of inflation in Bitcoin. It's not just one that we want to avoid. So the first type of inflation we want to avoid is the global inflation, no? So we want to don't issue Bitcoin forever, like at least to the same amount, because in this case, like if we keep creating Bitcoin out of nothing, at the end you're inflating, not the supply. So we would like in our monetary policy, like we already Austrian monetary policy, like we want to have an upper limit of the number of coins that can ever be produced. Like we don't want to go over that. This way, we want to get a treasure, where no more money can be printed, and also we want to avoid that if a lot of miners begin to mine, like if there is a lot of people that join the network just to mine because they see it's profitable, we want to have some kind of control over this, because we don't want to have like today 100 nodes validating and tomorrow 10,000, because the more nodes they are validating, the more probable is that one of them gets the right hash, and so the quicker the new block is gonna be created. This way, what happens, it means we really don't want a lot of mining power joining in the network in the same moment and begin to create blocks non-stop very fast, because this is gonna drain all the supply fast, even if we fix the total number of Bitcoin to 21 million, then maybe in one period in which everybody's validating the network, the, these Bitcoins get created very fast, and then they don't get created at all from tomorrow, no, because they finished. So we want to kind of regulate this kind of local inflation, no, this kind of point particular inflation, I would say. And we have two ways, two solutions, like one for every problem. Like for the global inflation, we have the halvening, and the halvening is something that happened yesterday, and then we have also the local inflation to fix, and this is we're gonna fix with difficulty adjustments. So in general, like the problem with inflation is this, like you come to the point where the money literally doesn't worth anything, and this is a problem that depending on the country is quite intense, and in general is not gonna be better because of different things. So Cryptonario is gonna treat also these things, so with articles and this kind of things. So in general, check the resources and the website, because you can learn a lot also on other things. And inflation at the end is like a hard drug, no? Once you begin to use it, is very difficult to stop, and also very easy to abuse it. And through history, like we saw, like really a lot of societies that ended very bad just because of this, because they begin to print money, and but at the end it's just a piece of paper. So when the value of the money reaches the nominal value of the money, like it's the piece of paper where it is printed, then it has no value anymore, no, it's monopoly money. So to fight this, Bitcoin introduced the halvening concept, no, the halvings. What is this? Well, so you can see the blue line, the graph that no, from down goes to the top. This is the total issuance of Bitcoin. So you can see at the top of this graph you have the years, no? From the left to the right, it goes from 2010 to 2062, and on the left you can see the millions of Bitcoin, no, that are available. And you can see the blue line. What happens is, slowly during time, it kind of go asymptotically through to 21 millions. Like it kind of no lie on this number. So what it means, like how is it can achieve this? Well, in the orange line, what you can see is this kind of stairs, no, and these stairs, is exactly the halvenings that are coming. So you also can see a green arrow where is you are here, like we are in 2020. And what happened yesterday was this small step where the block reward it went the half. Like now the reward for the miners to validate the blocks it went from 12 bitcoins to no from 12,50 bitcoins to 6,25. So from 12 to 6 bitcoins. Like yesterday, validating the network will give you 12 bitcoins for every block you append to the blockchain. Now it gives you 6. And this way, like every 4 years, reducing the supply by an half. This way, asymptotically, like we reach that in 2148, if I'm not wrong, like there's gonna be literally not Bitcoin created anymore. So this is kind of interesting, and actually 4 years ago, this was also the point in which he started this bull run, in which the price skyrocketed of Bitcoin from 3,000 to 20,000, and there is actually no reason to believe that it's not gonna happen a very similar thing, especially with all this huge amount of money that different central banks are printing, especially the Federal Reserve, like with quantitative easing, printing huge amount of money, but buying with that money like stocks, and it's crazy. So like it's gonna be interesting. Like in 4 years from now, like maybe we are in a different situation talking about this. And but of course, like you need also to take something in consideration, no? Because like after like now the miners have less incentives, no, to validate the network. If they have less incentives, well, some of them maybe don't see it profitable and simply don't validate it anymore. So Bitcoin would become very insecure in the future. We need to kind of avoid this, no? And the way it gets avoided is with miners fee. Like miners also get a fee when they validate the block, no? So, and this fee comes from you, that you make a transaction. You make a transaction, then a small thing goes to the miner for the service, no, that you're using. And this is very important because this is expected to fully substitute like the reward of the block creation, no? So this is a lot of game theory and incentivization. Like we really need to be careful on this, no, because we want the network to be secure. And this way, like kind of the market decide, no, because if Bitcoin is used a lot, then considering the blocks have a fixed size, then the network will be clogged, no, with transaction, and it will take more time to to validate this transaction, to have them processed, no? And maybe you're in a rush. If you're in a rush, maybe you are willing to pay, I don't know, 20 cents more to let a miner process it faster, because the miners, as we saw, like they see it from the mempool, no? What do I need to validate? This transaction. Well, this transaction has a lot of fees. This is a lot of reward for me. Let me take it before some other miner process it and he gets this thing. So it's kind of a market law, and miners, will choose to process transaction that will have more fees, no, because they are economical actors that rational, no, we assume them. And at the end, this is also what happened in the opposite, like at the beginning of the Bitcoin network, because at the beginning, like 10 years ago, more or less, like what happened is that the miners just got as reward like the block reward, no, creation, because nobody was using Bitcoin back then, and so their only reward was that. But now, like, and especially most probably in the future, like when more people use Bitcoin, then like there's gonna be a lot of opportunity for miners to get money out of it without necessarily relying on the block reward, no? So this is also the reason why before, like, these 10 years ago and stuff like this, like, miners wouldn't really care to charge transaction fee. They would do it for free. Like, you could give your transaction and they would process it without you even paying for them, because nobody was using it, so whatever. But now, like, there is some interest, no? So, and at the end, like, we see this transaction input and output, like, what goes to the miner is the difference between the outputs and the inputs of the block. So, as we saw, no, last time, like, in a transaction you get a lot of inputs from different people, and then you get some outputs, no, and a miner is gonna take just a small piece of it. This is gonna be for him, for his work of validating the network. And so fees, no, transaction fees are gonna rise when the network is used a lot, and transaction fees are gonna go down when the network is not used much. So this way, no, we can also understand, like how this, no, is gonna work out, no, from the block reward to the miner's fee. And in Cryptonario, if you check the tools in the Bitcoin section, like, you can see all these statistics on how it has been, like, the mining fees and like the process, like a huge amount of data on the Bitcoin network. So you can play with it a bit. Like, I think it's interesting. And like, in general, resources are very interesting to see. Like, we are striving to put everything that we can, like, that is interesting. So we fixed this, no, we fixed the global inflation problem, or we didn't fix the local inflation. So what happened if a lot of miners joins the network in the same moment? They begin to validate, blocks goes very production goes very fast. Now we need to kind of adjust the difficulty to kind of try to not waste, let's say, all the Bitcoin that we can produce in one day, you know, and have this issuance more like leaned towards time. So what we do here, we say, okay, let's say like this. Let's assume, like, we would really like to have a Bitcoin block created every 10 minutes, no matter what. Like, this is really what we would like to do in order to have this monetary policy that, like, in that year, in 2148, like, no more Bitcoins are created. So in average, like, we would like that every block, more or less, it gets created every 10 minutes. And so what we can do, we can divide the, time in periods. So we can say, hey, okay, let's take this chunk of time, and if in this chunk of time we want to have a block every 10 minutes, then we get the number of blocks, no, that there would supposedly be in this time. And once we do that, once we know how many blocks we expect in the next week, let's say, then you can see if in this week more blocks than the ones you expected are produced, or less blocks are produced. If more blocks are produced, of more blocks with respect to the one you were expecting, it means that the difficulty of the network is kind of easy. Like, the riddle is not so difficult, and so it means there is a lot of people trying to validate, and so at the end somebody, like, the block production goes faster, no? And so we should make it more difficult, no? If we get more blocks than the one we expect in the same lapse of time. While if we get less blocks, then it means, like, that blocks are created maybe every 20 minutes, every 30 minutes on average, and we don't want that, because we want to have a constant, production of Bitcoin. So in this case, maybe the riddle is too difficult. Maybe what happened is a lot of miners left because price fell. So a lot of miners closed the door and they went to sell coconut on the beach. And in this case, like, there is less people validating, so it's less probable that some of them would get this solution of this riddle of the hash that we saw before. So in this case, it's too difficult. So we should adjust the difficulty, and we should adjust it according if the blocks that we have is like it was above or below, no, the target that we were expecting. So if it's below the target, like if we need to make the mining process harder, we simply can add another zero in the expected zeros that we expect in the hash that we saw before. Why? Well, because if you add another zero, so instead of expecting 5 zeros, you say, hey, this is too easy, everybody is getting blocks very fast. Let's make another zero. Let's add another zero. Let's make sure that the hash gets is 6 zeros difficult. Then it's more difficult, no? Because it's less probable that hashing a random piece of data you get 6 zeros instead of five. You're putting a constraint more, no, on the hash. So what happens is basically that we have added a zero just to make everything more difficult, and this way we can no, manage the issuance of blocks in the time that we want. And if it's above the target, like if we need to make the mining process easier because the the number of blocks like is too little, then what we need to do is to decrease the number of zeros that we expect in the hash. We say, hey, guys, no worries. We know it's difficult. You are alone. You're not so many. Let's take out at zero so it's easier, and so we can still produce Bitcoin a new block every 10 minutes. No, and so the difficulty target is you have some zeros, no, the one on the left, and then you have stuff on, like here I put it a little bad, but on the left is the zeros that we need to fulfill our condition, and on the right it can be random numbers, random stuff. And this is the target. This is the famous difficulty target. Is simply the number of zeros that it's counted in bits. So every zero is a bit, no? Because it occupies a space in this hash. And so what we do, we have the first period in which we have 15 bits, no, of zeros. We have 15 zeros to that we need to achieve in this hash to make it valid for our block to be appended on the blockchain. If we see that with this we produce too many blocks, so on average maybe a block is produced every 7 minutes instead of 10, what we do in the next period is increasing the difficulty to 16 bits. So we add another zero, so we make less probable that people find the solution. And this way, like, we make the problem more difficult, and we manage not the issuance of Bitcoin. And if we see that this after a while is too difficult, then we lower it down again. And this is exactly how difficulty works in Bitcoin, and it's kind of cool because it takes a lot of things, no, in consideration. And so what we saw, like we started with what are the characteristics of the block of Bitcoin. No, we saw how the Merkle tree and guess the right hash like mixed together in order to give exactly like the block that is valid for us to put it. And we saw how miners get rewarded in this, and we saw, no, that identities is based on the resources that you waste. And we saw chain reorganization, like we see what happens if some blocks are mined at the same time, like who win, who doesn't win. We saw how nodes connect very fast, and also we understood the halvings that happened yesterday, and that prevent the global inflation of Bitcoin. And we saw difficulty adjustments that prevent the local inflation. And if you like this class, always like give us feedback also, like we are here to improve, and it's great to see the community is rising. Follow us on the website, check it out, and it's gonna be better. Follow us on Instagram also, on social networks, because we put other type of content, and content is gonna be available in Spanish also soon, like both classes and the content of the website. And we are working on creating a platform where you can log in and you can see the classes on. So like there is a lot of improvement and work going on, and we hope this is appreciated. So thanks a lot for staying here, and always happy to receive feedbacks. So you can write us an email and yeah, check the website. And also like join the main meetup group cryptonar.io if you came here through meetup, because the others are gonna be cancelled tomorrow. So this is very 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 important. Probably just Madrid is gonna stay with Barcelona. So yeah, go